With Jameela Jamil recently announced as Titania for Marvel's Disney Plus MCU series She-Hulk, it's the perfect time to talk about her. Thanks for watching JLS Comics. If you do like the video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. I upload videos just like this every week. Okay, let's jump into our story. In 1979, a Titania appeared in Marvel 2-in-1 issue 54, where she was defeated in a wrestling match by Thundra. And this Titania was killed by Golddigger and the villain Scourge in dramatic fashion. Splattered all over the wall, kinda dramatic. When she was resurrected with dark magic from Dormammu by the Hood, she was now called Lascivious, because Marvel didn't want to double up on Titanias again. The Mary MacPherran version of Titania debuted in 1984's Secret Wars with issue number 3. This means that for 2 years, Marvel actually had 2 Titanias running around their universe. Mary MacPherran's name was taken from a Marvel staffer, a production assistant noted by Marvel editor-in-chief and Titania co-creator Jim Shooter himself. Wonderful, gentle, sweet Mary Mac was indeed a smidgen of the basis for Titania, who was a willowy young woman who became uber robust and Hulk-level strong. If minded that I had a tough bad girl inspired by her and made the nod in her direction, she never mentioned it. And wicked smart Volcana had a bit of Mary Jo Duffy at her core. It was the thing we did back when, without spoiling the plot and getting ahead, so let's start at the beginning. Mary was born in Denver, Colorado, and growing up, she was small, short, and slight, and it earned her the nickname Skeeter, Mosquito for short. Mary became angry at bullies like Vanessa Ashwood in her constant harassment and humiliation. Mary fantasized about gaining powers and becoming a superhero and getting revenge on everyone who picked on her. She even pretended to be and lied to her friend Marcia Rosenberg that she was secretly Julia Carpenter, the Spider-Woman, when Spider-Woman came to town for a bit. So she was suddenly popular due to this lie and finally got invited to those parties. But as this happened, her town was ripped from Earth and made a part of the Beyonders battle world. When Spider-Woman appeared to render aid on Battleworld, Mary's lie was exposed, and so bully Vanessa and her gang chased Mary and Marcia, and that's where Dr. Doom found Mary and Marcia, and so Doom took the 2 girls to Doom Base and put them in his alien machine to make his own villain forces. So the machine's rays washed over the 2 ladies and transformed Mary into Titania and Marcia into Volcano. Mary grew 1.5 feet taller and now finally had what she wanted: power, strength, and curves. She was also now more proud and sure of herself, more extroverted, and more confident. She said, "Titania, like Titan, that's what I want to be called." And her friend Marcia's powers were molten slag-like ionized plasma, molten like a volcano, hence her name Volcana. Mary designed her new costume and wore it as she lifted a massive metal equipment blasted by Volcana high above her head, and she threw it aside and demanded Dr. Doom give her something else to test her newfound strength. Then Dr. Doom took Titania and Volcana to meet some of the Secret Wars villain faction. Titania was so confident in her new self, in fact, that she challenged Crusher Creel, the Absorbing Man, to a fight, saying he looked like the toughest man here. "I'm gonna do anything I want to you, everything I always wanted to do to everybody who used to be bigger and stronger than me. Maybe I'll play with you or make you eat dirt after," or she trailed off. But with nothing to prove, Absorbing Man declined Titania's challenge. Doom then took the villains to an alien ship and kamikazed right into the hero's base, kicking off an assault on their compound. Molecule Man destroyed the hero's base with a wave of his hand, and then Titania, along with the wrecking crew, began tossing the wreckage at the heroes 5 miles away. That is, until Molecule Man dropped an entire mountain range down on top of the heroes. Thor and Enchantress landed among the villains, demanding to know where his friends were, and so Titania punched Thor right in the solar plexus, knocking him off his feet. "Titania, the woman who killed Thor with her bare hands, is what they'll call me," she fantasized out loud. In the next Secret Wars Battle Royale, Titania clashed with Rogue of the X-Men. Secret Wars 6 features Titania's first cover appearance. In this issue, she took on Rogue again, along with Wolverine and Cyclops. Then Janet Van Dyne died, and while she passed, Titania was trying to care for Molecule Man, Volcana's new beau, who'd been sliced open by Wolverine. But the heroes went for revenge, and Titania ended up in a pitted battle again with Rogue, Cyclops, and now Nightcrawler too. Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk then went to Doom Base seeking revenge for the death of Janet Van Dyne, and there she took out the wrecking crew and then ran into Titania for the first time, and thus began decades-long rivalry between the 2 ladies. They fought ferociously, trading quips and blows back and forth. The wrecking crew came back, and together with Titania, they beat She-Hulk with their weapons, fists, and metal pillars to within an inch of her life. When the heroes launched a counterattack against the villains, Titania ended up battling with Spider-Man, but Spidey knocked her face into a wall and then grabbed Titania's leg and threw her through a wall, where she fell to the rocky ground far below outside Doom Base. In Secret Wars 11, as Titania gathered herself after being defeated by Spider-Man, Titania and Absorbing Man got a little closer. He told her, "You're the strongest broad on this planet," and she replied, "I wish I had your Absorbing Man powers, Crusher. Nothing can hurt you, really." And later still, as the villains gathered at Marsh's apartment in the ruins of Colorado on Battleworld, Crusher squatted next to Titania and said, "Me and Legs just want to go home." After they were sent back to Earth, Titania joined with Baron Zemo and the Masters of Evil, tasked right away with recruiting Dr. Carla Sofin, also known as Moonstone, to the villain team. Moonstone was defeated by the Avengers and turned over to the NYPD, and in the back of the police truck, 2 guards flanked Moonstone, and those 2 guards ended up being Crusher Creel, the Absorbing Man, and Titania. They basically said to her, "Join us or we'll kill you like the cops whose uniforms we stole." So while Zemo sent his newly amassed villains to attack Avengers Mansion, he purposely had Titania and Crusher stay back, giving them very different orders. During this period, Titania went to rob Gino's fine jewelry store, which is when she ran into a black-suited Spider-Man as she held a police car above her head. Spidey was apprehensive, remembering how Titania almost beat She-Hulk to death on Battleworld, and yet Titania remembered that Spider-Man was the one who punched her through a wall and flattened her out on the ground outside. Spidey asked Titania where Crusher was, and her response was to throw a van at Spider-Man. And Titania ended up getting away and took the stolen diamonds back to her and Crusher's hotel room. Crusher grabbed the diamonds and changed to his diamond form for a moment, telling her to stop with the 2-bit heists, as it might mess up their Master of Evil membership and the subplot that Zemo had for them at the airport that night. That plan was to pick up Mongoose, whom Zemo had smuggled out of the country of Transia, home to Wundagore Mountain, but they again fought with Spider-Man at the airport as they tried to pick him up, and on the tarmac of the airport, Spidey had Titania by her hair, ready for the final blow, and Crusher rose up and threatened to drop an entire jetliner right on Spider-Man's head, so Spidey swung away, barely escaping with his life. The Masters of Evil took over Avengers Mansion, trapped Captain Marvel elsewhere, and nearly killed Hercules. And Hercules was at a hospital, and that's where Titania and Crusher then showed up, fighting the police outside while Janet Van Dyne the Wasp, who's now back alive, and Scott Lang the Ant-Man looked on, and then they all fought. Ant-Man attacked Titania with an army of ants and knocked out Crusher with their disruptor blasts, and then Titania with a gas canister to the face. So Titania and the Masters of Evil were ultimately defeated, and they were taken to a superhuman Supermax penitentiary called the Vault for imprisonment. Titania's stay at the Vault, though, would not last long. The corrections officers at the Vault, called guardsmen, were using stolen Stark Iron Man designs for their suits, and so when Tony came to confront them, which was called Armor Wars, their conflict took out the entire power to the Vault, which allowed Titania and the other prisoners to escape custody. Captain America, now called the Captain, captured Mr. Hyde, but when the Captain's teammate, a guy named D-Man or Demolition Man, tried to apprehend Titania, he failed miserably and was embarrassed by how quickly and easily Titania defeated him, and so she escaped. So now free once more, Titania headed right to Washington, D.C., and there again she ran into She-Hulk. After their battles, She-Hulk defeated Titania decisively, and she was sent back to prison. But again, Titania broke out of prison, and now free yet again, she joined with Hydra Man, Wizard, and Claw to form a new iteration of the Frightful Four, and this Frightful Four battled the Fantastic Four. They had their clocks cleaned by the Fantastic Four and were sent back to the Vault. This was, of course, short-lived once again, as the villains within the Vault, manipulated by Loki, broke out at the start of a new story called Acts of Vengeance. And for Acts of Vengeance, Dr. Doom watched Titania work out and then deployed her against a cosmic Spider-Man imbued with the power of Captain Universe. She wanted revenge against She-Hulk for defeating her, but Doom said, let someone else whose moves she doesn't know take out Jen Walters, while Titania was sent against a fresh opponent. He lied to her that Spidey didn't defeat her on Battleworld, but she'd been tricked and she was enraged. Doom planted a device on Titania's shoulder that turned her fear into mindless rage. So she went out looking for Spider-Man, but she first ran into Puma at Mr. Fireheart's offices. She threw Puma out a window, but Spidey, on the other side of the building, saved Puma. And as he was roping Puma in, Titania grabbed Spider-Man through the window, clasping her giant hand around Spider-Man's neck. And they both fell out the window and tumbled down and through the concrete street, hundreds of feet below. Then Puma clawed Dr. Doom's controller device off of Titania's shoulder, but instead of being afraid again, she lunged at Spider-Man, pummeling him with her fists until the Captain Universe powers charged up, and Cosmic Spidey blasted Titania through a big rig's trailer, and with that, Titania was down. Then, while being transported to the Vault, their armored truck was attacked by Graviton, requesting she, Trapster, and their brothers Grimm help Chameleon keep fighting Spider-Man. And Chameleon said he'd pay them each $100,000 to kill Spider-Man. So they all ended up fighting among a Graviton-floated Daily Bugle building right in New York. Chameleon double-crossed them, however, and set them up to attack Kingpin, Chameleon's rival. Titania and the team jumped Kingpin at Kingpin Tower, but Spider-Man was there too for the rematch. Spider-Man told her, "For a good-looking gal, you've got quite an attitude problem." Then punched her dozens of stories to the ground, and Titania landed on her feet, but she was hit by a truck and knocked through a store window, and once again, knocked out. In Avengers Spotlight 29, Titania was rounded up with the rest of the foes and marched right back into the Vault prison. In Marvel graphic novel 68, Titania teamed up with Goliath and Ironclad to use Venom's prison break to make their own escape from the Vault. And on the way out, she ran into Hawkeye, Wasp, and Wonder Man. And there, Titania went toe-to-toe with Wonder Man for the hallway fight until Piledriver punched Wonder Man out. And from there, now free once more, she joined a villain team led by Superia that was called the Femizons. In Quasar issue 5, Quasar took Crusher Creel's ball and chain and stored it in a protected sub-basement of Avengers Mansion while Creel was quote-unquote put on ice. Titania was in New York and saw Thor flying on TV, and Titania was excited. She said her life had been a directionless mess since after his run-in with Quasar, she had to do something to get his attention and get him back. Crusher was indeed back, and he fought with and was defeated by Thor, and so that's when Titania stepped in, smacking Thor with a giant stick. She got the drop on Thor, but then Thor hit her in the face with Mjolnir, and Titania was once more down. Thor was shaken by hitting a lady, and he just said, "Do me a favor and stay out of trouble," and he walked away. Later, Titania attacked She-Hulk while she was eating at a diner with her friend Wyatt. And there, She-Hulk broke the fourth wall, calling her a ripoff of She-Hulk, and like the Marvel Universe needed one more super strong female. As Titania continued to pummel She-Hulk, she said, "I thought this was supposed to be a funny book. I hope no one reading this thinks this is funny." But suddenly, She-Hulk got her powers back from Wheezy, and she took out Titania. After Four Freedoms Plaza was destroyed in Infinity War, Doc Ock gathered up Titania and a group of villains as a new Masters of Evil to use the confusion to invade Avengers Mansion. Although while the Avengers weren't there, the Guardians of the Galaxy were, and they all fought. In Thor 447, Titania robbed an armored truck, stole the jewels, and threw the truck at the cops. She was having fun, but Crusher Creel was keeping a low profile, hanging out at their apartment and hoping she'd stop attracting attention to them, because he didn't want to go back to jail. Titania ran into She-Hulk again when Miss Walters was at a store called Libido's trying on lingerie. Crusher kept asking Titania to get a respectable job, and she happened to be there too, applying for a job. So once more, Titania and Shulky fought. Titania was creaming Jen until Ben Grimm, the Thing, showed up, calling Titania Peg Bundy, and he punched her to the sky, so the police went and scooped her up. Titania, Abomination, and Gargantua showed up in Dust Pit, Arizona looking for Hulk in Hulk Annual 19. The three of them destroyed the whole town on their hunt for the Jade Giant. The cover for Thunderstrike 16 features a fight poster pitting She-Hulk against Titania for a grudge match. Creel was now pissed at her for taking on those odd jobs, mad because they were still on patrol, and like I said, he didn't want to go to jail. And it was just after this that Titania finally asked Crusher Creel for his hand in marriage, and he said yes, and the two were married. In 1996, Acclaim, who owned Valiant Comics and X-O Manowar, teamed up with PlayStation and Marvel to make a crossover X-O Manowar Iron Man game for Sega Saturn that also got its own 2-issue comic book series which featured, yes, Titania. She was working with Zemo and Augur to get the Cosmic Cube and merge realities. In 1997, for a holiday special, Crusher was in Pennsylvania at Dreamworld Collectibles buying a Millie the Model doll for his wife Skeeter. They live just outside the city now in Cranberry Township. He got in a fight when all he wanted to do was buy the doll for his wife. The police were called, a grenade dropped at his feet, and it was all over the news, so Titania showed up on the scene to help out her husband. The doll was destroyed, but the excitement was a great gift for Titania, and so ultimately she was happy. Absorbing Man was stiffed by Juggernaut and the New World Order after Apocalypse turned Hulk into a horseman named War, so now they had no money to float them through the winter. And so now they needed to pick up jobs to get some funds. And so he wanted to go after Spider-Man to collect the bounty out on the web-slinger's head. And using an idea from Thunderbolts, the duo dressed up as Thundergirl and Lightning Bolt and went to Norman Osborn to make their debut. Osborn paraded them in front of J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie Robertson at the Daily Bugle. The pair thought they got over on Osborn, but Osborn knew it was them and reported them to the police, where the two ended up battling both Spider-Man and Daredevil, who also didn't fall for their ruse. Titania and Crusher then robbed a restaurant where Jennifer Walters and Luke Cage happened to be eating, and when Titania saw Shulky, she freaked out. They all fought, but Crusher's ball hit Titania in the head and knocked her out instead. Titania and Crusher next jumped Jennifer a year later at Raglan's Coffee House and Law Library and beat her senseless on the sidewalk outside. But then, after getting She-Hulk under control with drugs, they ran into Valeria Richards Von Doom, aka Marvel Girl, and they fought until Thing and Bounty showed up. Thor and Iron Man were working together another time and ran into Titania and her husband smashing cars and causing mayhem. Another misunderstanding. They were at a jewelry store so Crusher could buy Titania a wedding anniversary present, but the owner was scared and he hit the alarm, and when the police arrived, they got pissed off and started smashing stuff. Then Titania found out she had cancer. The problem was she had no insurance and no money, and so her stay in the hospital was short-lived. Titania moved into an abandoned building to continue fighting her illness, and they got help from Thor and Dr. Jane Foster, and she was able to defeat her terminal cancer. In She-Hulk, Titania once again attacked Jen, who was now back to changing between Jen and She-Hulk thanks to help from Reed Richards. Powered up, it took one punch from Shulky to knock Titania away clear across Manhattan and right into a garbage dump in New Jersey. An Elder of the Universe named the Champion, but calling himself the Fallen One, showed up at the dump to give Titania the Power Gem, one of the Infinity Gems, to defeat She-Hulk. She attached the gem to her mask right on her forehead as he coached her how to use the gem. Titania went to look for She-Hulk at her apartment and then went to her law office in Timely Plaza. Infinity Gem-powered Titania fought She-Hulk, but it was one-sided. The building was destroyed and She-Hulk couldn't land a meaningful hit on the power-infused Titania. Beaten and laying on subway tracks, Titania's rage went into overdrive and the Power Gem glowed on her head as she declared the death of She-Hulk. But she was saved by Doc Samson and a hex that Scarlet Witch had put on her, and so She-Hulk disappeared. The Power Gem Titania took on the Avengers, Spider-Man, and the Fantastic Four, and it was Jen who ripped the Power Gem off of Titania's forehead and stopped the rampage. During Superhuman Civil War, she was grabbed by a female Skrull named Jacinda and thrown and eaten by a shark. But she was alive, she managed to survive that, and that's when she ran into X-Factor. And then Titania, back with the Frightful Four, appeared on Titan, where they beat up Susan Storm. The Wizard promised he would help her defeat She-Hulk if Titania helped him out. And after this, Titania wound up once more in custody, but this time instead of the vault, she was at the Raft, and under the watch of the Raft's new warden, Luke Cage. During the Fear Itself event of 2011, Titania was out of jail and got one of the mystical hammers that were called to Earth by Serpent. Titania had one of the hammers and was transformed into Skirn, Breaker of Men. She set out on a quest with her husband Crusher to find a hammer for him too. But at the end of Fear Itself, Titania as Skirn was defeated and sent back to the Raft. Laying low though, Titania showed up again in 2013 at a bar with no name as Gambit met with Tombstone for an exchange. Titania then returned for a battle in the Fearless Defenders book with the Doom Maidens, where she was fighting Thanos' War Dogs along with Scorpia, Shriek, and Mind Blast. Then they had to fight Valkyrie, Misty Knight, Annabelle Riggs, and Hippolyta, with Titania battling Hippolyta right in the streets. After this, Titania and her husband rejoined the Masters of Evil, teaming up with the Superior Six to fight with Spider-Man and Sun-Girl. And then Titania broke into Jen Walters' law office and stole a file. This time Titania threw She-Hulk from Brooklyn over Manhattan right into New Jersey as payback for what she did before the Power Gem event. At the end, it was Jen's paranormal paralegal, a smart capuchin monkey named Hey Hey, who defeated Titania. And then Titania and Crusher Creel ran into Jane Foster as Thor. Titania grabbed Crusher's ball and chain and swung it, but instead of knocking out Thor, she knocked out Crusher. "I ain't fighting no woman, Thor, and neither is he," she said. Jane hit Titania in the face with her hammer, and they were both down. Then Titania was with Caroline LaFay and Scorpia, Doom Maidens again, in Deadpool and the Mercs for Money. After this, Titania was really tired of always being bad, so she joined up with the Hood in a book called Illuminati, while Crusher was still in prison at a Manhattan superpowered detention wing. She was on parole with a federally mandated tracking bracelet on her arm. She was working at a pawn shop and saved it from robbers, although her clothes were conveniently shredded. But again, bad timing as Iron Fist and Cage showed up and thought she caused it. They got the drop on her, but Hood appeared and teleported her back to his lair. Then while playing Monopoly with Fixer and Moonstone, Diamondback recruited all three of them to take on the Defenders. In Black Bolt's 2018 book, Black Bolt was sent to prison by his brother Maximus, but he broke out with help from Crusher Creel, who ended up losing his life in the prison break. So when Black Bolt came to Earth with Blinky, Titania met them, furious at the loss of her husband. But then Blinky showed Titania that they were friends, that her husband had died a hero, and to let her know that he didn't leave her. He was captured. In fact, it was Crusher who destroyed the jailer to free them all. Black Bolt had come to return Crusher's ball and chain to his wife, Titania. And at the funeral, Titania, now just wanting to go by Mary, met with Captain America, who told her her husband lived a life of crime, sure, but he died a hero. Mary teamed up with Black Bolt to fight aliens and save that alien kid Blinky. In the Weapon H book, Titania was working as a contractor with Dario Agger and Angel at the Earth side of the Roxxon portal to Weird World, where he recruited Weapon H, Man-Thing, Blake, and Korg. They were to fight dragon-like beings in Weird World called Skrull-Duggers. Titania also appeared in the Star miniseries. After Carol Danvers punched a hole in Ripley Ryan's chest, she managed to survive but laid low and ended up running into Titania at a bar. They fought briefly until Loki hit Star on the head and took her to quote-unquote who knows where. After Immortal Hulk disappeared, Carol Danvers of Alpha Flight put together a Gamma Flight team to track Immortal Hulk down. This team was Puck, Doc Samson, Absorbing Man because no one stays dead, Sasquatch, and Titania. They were stationed on Alpha Flight space station in Earth's orbit, but this one time, Bruce's Joe Fixit shot out a window of the space station and all hell broke loose as that Joe Fixit Hulk, Bruce, jumped out the window. So Henry Gyrick ended up taking over Gamma Flight from Carol Danvers and put out an arrest warrant for Crusher Creel, who didn't want to go to the space station anymore if the windows could be shot out so easily. So Gyrick put the whole team on mandatory leave since they weren't cooperating. And now, without jurisdiction, the team was still on the hunt for Hulk and confronted the Avengers who wanted him too. And in the Gamma Flight story, they were on the run from Gyrick, who had now picked up a mutated and gamma-irradiated Rick Jones, where the Hulk hunters now had become the hunted. Together they hid out at Carl and Mary's and teleported around hunting a deformed mutate named Dion, aka Stockpile, which is when they ran into Scar. Most recently in Marvel Voices Pride, Titania once more went back to her roots, which is fighting She-Hulk in random places, but this time it turned out to be a transgender cosplayer who used She-Hulk to empower herself inside and out. And so Mary, Titania, had come full circle, her story now that of a hero. That's a wrap on this one, my friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and you'll be one of the first to know when I upload videos just like this each and every week. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.